Hello and welcome to my 1 year review of my R35 Nissan GTR. Now before we get into the video, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for clicking on this video, and also thank you to the almost 13,000 subscribers that have chosen to stay with the channel. I was watching an old video from about a year ago. This guy was just tiny in it, and we only had about 1,000 subscribers then, so we've amassed about 12,000 in the past year, and honestly I couldn't be more grateful. Now let me finish my coffee and get into the video. So let's start by talking about what I've changed in the time that I've had the car. First up, the wheels. Speed by Design FF5s. They're slightly lighter, quite a bit wider. You can run a monster 335 section on that rear, which is handy at this power, but most importantly, I think they look absolutely amazing. They look hard as nails, really suit the car. Next up, let's talk power, of which there is quite a lot. 700 horsepower, 650 foot-pounds of torque. That's quite a common figure to cap these GTRs at in order to protect the gearbox and also protect the rods inside the engine, which tends to be the weak point. So it's stage 4.25. Interestingly, this car uses all Litchfield hardware because it was originally a Litchfield stage 3 car. I've now switched to GM Import software because, well, to be honest, they're a lot closer than Litchfield, so it makes sense that they have their software on it because they do all the maintenance on the car. I still find it pretty extraordinary. With just quite simple bolt-on modifications, you can get those kind of numbers from this engine. Pretty amazing, actually. So let's kick off with the things that I haven't enjoyed so much over my past year of ownership of this car. Now at the top of that list, it has to be the gearbox. In particular, when you're in slow moving traffic and you're using automatic, it can just make the weirdest selections at times. You come up to a roundabout doing a couple of miles per hour, literally 2 or 3 miles per hour, it will still be holding on to second gear, and rather than go into first and take off cleanly, it will slip hell out of the clutch to get you moving. On top of that, the brains behind the gearbox are so intent on constantly getting into the highest gear possible, and as a result, you end up at extremely low RPMs most of the time. I think about 35 miles an hour, and the car will be looking to select 6th gear. So rather ironically, you end up in a car that feels a bit lazy, a bit lethargic. It's not the GTR at all, but it is if you leave that gearbox in auto. Here's something I don't think I've ever heard anyone else mention about the GTR, and that is the weighting of the throttle pedal. Who the hell signed that thing off? It is unbelievably light. And by that I mean it takes no effort to push it whatsoever. In a car with this kind of might, it would be a bit more reassuring if you actually had to put a bit of force into it, but it is so lightweight. I don't think it's just this GTR either. I've driven other ones, and from memory, I think they were pretty light as well. Don't sneeze behind the wheel of a GTR because you'll be doing 120 before you know it. So I must be honest with you, I am clutching at straws to try and bring you negative things about this car. Call me biased, I probably am. Because even a year ago when I first bought it, I really liked it. But over the past year, I've kind of come to love it actually. I've done all the usual stuff, the car shows, the road trips, the drive outs with friends, and it's been a blast, don't get me wrong. But to be completely honest with you, it's been when life has been a bit shit that this car has been a complete mainstay for me. This is the car that got me to the hospital lightning quick when my gravely ill family member needed me there. This is the car that when life has been a bit heavy has brought a smile to my face. It's amazing we form these attachments to these inanimate 2-ton objects, but I'm sure if you're watching this channel you can kind of relate to what I'm saying and have probably felt the same way. And that's what this car is to me. So 700 horsepower on the public road. What's that like? Well, in truth, you're really not winding it out all that often because things just become very illegal very fast. And I quite like having my license and quite like being able to drive cars on this channel, so I just don't do it all that often. To give you some idea of how effortless this engine feels, it's already producing 300 horsepower by 2,500 RPM, so even keeping up with a relatively fast car is a complete doddle, never mind Joe Public and their average cars. GTRs seem to have this uncanny ability as well to mask their power so well. Even at 700 horsepower, this thing remains ultra composed. You want to give it a blast at 700 horsepower on a wet, wintry feeling day? Be my guest. I've driven much lairier 500 brake horsepower cars. I think it was a Chris Harris review I remember watching years and years ago, and he described driving one of these as it feels like it's driving its tyres into the concrete, and that is very accurate. That's exactly how it feels. So all this talk of performance, that for me is coming close to the core identity, the core appeal of the GTR. For decades, these things have been dusting cars 2 or 3 times their price. As I've said before, there's absolutely no chance that I could go out there and afford a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or something else that offers up this level of performance, but the GTR makes it accessible for ordinary, everyday, hard-working people. It's the underdog that takes the fight to the automotive elites, and who can't love it for that? That's partly the reason why I look on with disgust at where R34 prices have gone, because it was never intended to be that way. It was like the R35, it was the cheaper car that could decimate all, but that's a story for another video. So in terms of running costs, next to nothing. The car's been extremely impressive. Nothing's gone wrong. The car's never let me down once, bar a flat battery, but that's kind of my fault. I don't use it that often. It's more of a weekend car, so I really should keep it on the trickle charger. But yeah, it's never let me down. Honestly, one of, if not the most reliable performance cars that I've ever owned. I serviced it once, that got done at GM Imports. When all the tuning was getting done, I think it was about 600 quid. Extremely impressive. So I do tend to swap my cars fairly often. In fact, it's quite a testament to how much I've enjoyed it, the fact that it's even still here a year on. And then you've also got that great post-GTR problem of what on earth do you buy after one of these that's going to be this usable, this reliable, this fast, and crucially, this special? Because the GTR is a special cult car to me. It's a really tricky question. Without doubling your budget, what would you buy? So the other consideration that you do have is, as of March this year, they're not making any more R35s. They're not magically stockpiling them in dealerships somewhere. They're gone, they're not coming back. And that kind of puts the GTR into that category where, well, if you can't get your hands on them, then they're not going to depreciate that much. In fact, I think over time, I do strongly believe these cars will start to appreciate. At least nice examples will. Probably a bit like the R34. Hopefully not to that level, because I really would like to see people retain these cars and drive them and use them and enjoy them as they're intended. The R36, if we ever do see it come along, is undoubtedly going to have some sort of electric powertrain. It's not going to be the flame-spitting monster that this car was. And yeah, it's kind of sad, but although times are moving on, mine isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I love this car, and it's here to stay. Now, if you're looking for your own one, click in the top right-hand corner now or in the description, and I'll take you over all the common faults, all the things that can tend to go wrong with these cars to make sure you get a good one. Please do like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.